Say that a little bit slower. I really want people to hear that. Say that
Never
again.
make a decision in desolation. So, in other words, never make a decision when you're far from God. And in consolation, store it up
Yeah.
because desolation's guaranteed coming back.
Yeah.
So it's the Paschal mystery. It's the Good Friday. It's this emptiness of Saturday. It's the Resurrection Sunday. And that is life. That's our season. That's summer, spring.
Good day and welcome to another edition of the Faith and Real Life podcast. My name is Greg Wasinski and I am your host. But so grateful that you are here with me today as always. And if you're new to the podcast, I want to welcome you and just let you know to sit back and relax and to see how God might be speaking to you today. And today's a special show. So you showed up on the right one, and it is because for the first time in a while, I'm getting to see a friend of mine. Life has just been busy, and we haven't gotten a chance to get together and talk. But I am so happy to be with her. And one thing that I can say is you might recognize the voice, because today with me is my friend and one of the original co-hosts of the Faith and Real Life podcast, Millie Prebel. Millie, it is so wonderful to be with you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be back. And as you say, life has been busy. We've connected here and there through texts, but it is so good to just be back here at the ranch.
Yeah, right.
And in each other's personal company so that we can, catch back up. We've already been talking for about 2 hours before we pushed record. So
no, I think that, we talked today about maybe some different topics and what we were going to talk about. And you kind of threw some things out there. And then when you got here, I was like, no, there's a lot of people that don't know your story and maybe some of the things that you've been working on. And so I was like, let's just talk about that. Let's just have a conversation. That's what this is supposed to be about. And so then I was thinking about just where you've been at in life, and, you're supporting Bill and in his journey as a diaconate. We interviewed Bill, I think last year it was, did a great interview about his journey. But then, so you're supporting him. You've been being Mimi,
right?
Which so we were
Best
talking
job
about
in the world.
Mimi versus Grandma and that name, and people always say who do you want to be, Pop, or I'm like, first of all, I don't know that I'll ever get to be any of those things, but I just want to be Grandpa. I don't know, maybe I'm old, but how did Mimi even come about?
Well, oddly enough, my sister called the kids Mimi here and there, and we called each other Mimi, and so it just became an endearing term. And then when my daughter announced she was having our grandchild, I'm like, I'm Mimi. I'm taking that name. Nobody else can have it. Yeah. So it's been. I understand why people say it's the best job ever.
Yeah. So I think that when you tell people I can experience it as a father, and we know that being a parent changes your life forever. When you become a grandparent, is that a whole new level?
It's a different level, because I remember my daughter, of course, post birth and all these emotions and hormones, and she's like, so is it true? Do you love them better than us? And I said, no, that's not it at all. I said, it's a way for me almost to love you again in a way where you're totally the focus, where I don't have the other pressures of, family and running the house and, all the things going on. I can just come and focus on your child.
Yeah.
And it's the most amazing gift to watch your child become a parent.
They say that we get to have grandchildren to right all the mistakes
Well,
that we
that's
made
what I
with
said.
our own kids.
I said God gives us grandchildren for getting through our own.
Yeah, right. Enjoyment.
It's an amazing gift, and I tell her too. We talk a lot about, and I'm the first to admit, I was definitely not June Cleaver. I was not the best, and I fully admit and will talk about some of my shortcomings.
Yeah.
And one of the things I told her is, you parent out of what you had and what you didn't have. And I said, and you get to make those decisions. I'm not offended if I say, well, this is, and she's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. It didn't work out so great for me. It's your family.
Yeah, I think that all the time. I think people are trying to say, we did the best with the information that we could
at the
in
time.
that moment.
Yeah.
Like, are they regrets? No, they're not necessarily regrets. It's just, that's what we knew. That's what we were in.
Right.
And I even think now, like, when it comes to even faith journey.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so hard on myself at times in the moment of something.
Right.
But I only got here because I could go back and reflect and see where God led me from and what he did in my life. But it was years.
Right.
It was over a long period of time. So now when I have a bad day, I'm like, what the heck's wrong with you? Pull it together. And I'm like, man, it took you like 30 years to pull it together before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I think, having a spiritual director background, I always tell my daughter, anybody that's like, all of our journey is uniquely our own.
Yeah.
Like two people have the same journey.
Yeah.
Your journey is part of it's part of the process of your upbringing, of your schooling, of your own experiences. There's a whole host of things that goes into our formation, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's unique to you. And we all go through it, differently at our own pace and God's timing, as they say. And I think it's a beautiful thing, we were just talking about, having some age and wisdom, hopefully, with that aging. That's why I think it's so difficult sometimes for young people, because they don't have that experience.
Yeah.
They can't look back and say, God, you were there, you were here, you were here, you were here. I knew you picked me up off the floor there, So, our role, I think sometimes, especially as grandparents, as parents, grandparents, and even as, elders, quote unquote, in the church, is to just remind, people of, to help them find their experiences and to remind them of our own. Sometimes, it's just a witness story that gets somebody through a hard time, a hard night, a hard day.
I just had this conversation with somebody the other day about, the book of Revelation, and it ends the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. But we start with Genesis.
Right.
And we have this whole book of the Bible that leads people through thousands and thousands of years. The earth is like 4.5 billion years old, right? Like, there is a time and a place and a season for everything.
Right.
And I don't think, I think when young people are hard on themselves, it's not that you don't know anything. It's just that we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
I actually started working on a book when I was 20. So the year I got married, I started working on a book. And I still haven't written the book, but I still have the title. I'm not going to put it out there right now. But my plan is to probably write it in the next year or two. Mm-hmm. But if I would have wrote that book at 20... Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have any of the right answers. I knew what I felt,
right,
but I hadn't lived it.
Right.
And I think so much of our lives, like even being a Mimi, mm-hmm. like to live and appreciate that child in front of you. Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's part of it, that we have an appreciation for the beauty of life even differently?
It definitely makes you nostalgic.
Yeah.
There's definitely, of course, at this stage of life, sort of you're thinking legacy, like, who do I want them to remember me as, So there's a lot of, there's a lot of components that go into it, as far as, just having that, like, even like they'll say like, well, there's the last time you pick your grandson up, you know what I mean? And I know that because I have a weight limit. Since my back surgery, I can't lift over 50 pounds. And I know as soon as I hit that limit, I can't lift them up.
Yeah.
And so just like holding my granddaughter, who's of course, less weight, and then the younger one. But just that time, like I would get there just probably in time to get the young one down to a nap, and just sitting and singing and rocking. I could do that all day long.
Yeah.
It's just like you just want to, bottle that feeling and that
and
emotion.
And as a parent, we're like, I can't wait till this kid goes to sleep.
Yeah.
I got to get to the next thing.
That's right.
Once I get the, oh my God, she started crying again. Now I won't be able to clean the house.
Yeah.
Like,
I know my daughter will come and she's like, don't wake him up. I was like, oh, okay. It's like there's certain things like, but it's true though. It's a different time and space, and I'm thrilled and honored and privileged that I'm allowed in the space and the place that I am.
Yeah.
Of being able to be in such, close relationship.
Do you think that as a spiritual director, do you think that it's enhanced your life? Like, do you ever think about it? Like, when you look at your your directees and the people that you've been with, like, does it change that?
Does it change?
Like the way that you, like being a grandparent, like, and having that wisdom, like it's like the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, right? We can't, until we get there, we can't really preach about it.
Right. And I think that, like you said, advice I was giving in my 30s and 40s, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could find those people and like apologize. You know what I mean? It's like the old Italian, like you talk to us like, but what do I know?
Yeah, right.
But it definitely comes into play, to have this, like I said, it's something to watch your child parent, and you see so much of yourself. You see so much better of who you were.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. So I definitely, I say things, like she'll have an issue about something and I'll say, this is what I tell people like in spiritual direction, or this is, and I'll always preface that, like, this is like not mom, this is like your spiritual director speaking now, which you didn't ask me before, but I'm telling you anyways. but yeah, so sometimes I feel like it definitely they both enhance each other.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed with a lot of different life experiences, both good and bad. And one of the toughest lessons I think to learn for anyone is embracing it all.
Yeah.
I rejoice in the suffering. Like, I think it takes a while to really get your head around that. And I don't know that we ever completely do on this plane.
Yeah. I saw a quote from Muhammad Ali, supposedly, because it was on the internet, so we can't prove it. I haven't double checked this reference, but it was like, the man who's 50 and is the same as he was when he was 20 wasted 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, so we have to constantly be evolving. We have to constantly be changing. I know that with 2 kids in their early 20s, the things that I worry about, the problems that I have, even the relationship that I get to have is very different, but also the way that I look at the rest of the world, and I look at young adults, and I look at what people are struggling with. And even some of the problems that young people have with trusting authority and different things like that. For me to be in that situation, for me to have that life experience, we just can't beat life experience.
Oh, no. I always joke about, like, if there's a scenario going on where, like, the experts say this, the experts say that. I used to have a saying, especially in the beauty industry, I said, it always works on paper.
Yeah.
And you take it off the paper and anything can happen, right?
Right.
So we have to have that practical, lived experience to have perspective and balance.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of defining experiences that have caused me to be more intentional about the things I do and the things I don't do. So I think all of those, they're like little flags, like, posts along the way that on our journey that they're memory spots. Like they're, I like you say, I'm definitely not who I was before this happened.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way, in a good and bad, like, change is tough. Growth is hard. And sometimes we take, a step forward and 3 back.
That's what I loved about the movie Inside Out. And then they made Inside Out 2 with the girl as an adolescent. But just the way that they take the core memories and the core experiences and the emotions and how we deal with them.
Right.
And I think about God's love. And I think, parenting, grandparenting, all wonderful examples of how God sees us in this world and how we can be receive mercy in so many different ways. But I think about those core life experiences, And when we utilize them to tell our story, when we're letting other people know that, yeah, I went through this too.
Right.
Or you haven't gone through this yet. And I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
Right.
But I really want to be compassionate to where you are.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy.
Right. Yeah, I remember, when I did, you asked me, gosh, I don't even know how many years ago, to be your only female speaker at your men's conference. And of course I said no. But I really had to pray about it and think about, what do I have of value to offer, someone on a spiritual journey, or especially you wanted me to talk about authentic masculinity, which, okay, another topic that should not be coming from a woman, but
this is the way I roll.
Yeah, but it was something really good for me to sit with and ponder and pray about, because I realized as a former hairdresser, I had sons, brothers, husbands, in my chair, and also their wives, sisters,
you had
mothers.
The real confessional.
So, yeah. So, telephone hairdresser. So, it was something that once I understood, I have heard some of the desires, from a woman's perspective of what authentic, masculinity would look like. But then understanding, and sharing the why of understanding, our reliance on faith. And, I would say, the women, they want they want their spouse, they want the man in their life to lead them, to be that, that head of the house, that protector, that provider, that, and one of those ways is being grounded in faith, grounded in Christ, trying to be more Christ-like, because, we cannot lead without him.
Well, and we have a tendency to get into a group or a corner or a club, and we all sit around and we share interests, and we go rah, 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 and we talk about, whether it's hurt, and we're going to talk about how we own our hurt, or whether it's just celebratory, whatever it is, we start to lose the lens of the world when we just stick with our own people. And I thought, we're doing a men's conference. We're trying to be stronger men for those that we love, those that we lead. Why wouldn't we want to hear from the person, or the person who's representing those who we do lead and those that we do walk with? And it's not like a female male role kind of thing, like the man has to be this. No, this is about, we depend on one another to lead us at different points in our lives, at different times. Right now, you're walking with Bill and in his journey, as I mentioned, to be a deacon in the Catholic Church. But I know that there's times that he's tired. I know that there's times that he's questioning maybe what he's doing or how he's doing it. And then you have to be the leader, right? So it's always a good balance to say, what do those that we're leading need to hear?
The other thing about that is, if we look biblically at the role of Adam and Eve, and we look at what God created Eve to be, Adam's helpmate. And if you look that term up biblically, it is a person that has a protective view of what their partner can't see. That might be harmful, that brought to their attention would be part of the solution and not the problem.
Wow. Some solid stuff in that Bible.
Yeah, imagine that.
More people should read it, I think.
So it's interesting when we look at the dynamic of, how our faith informs our relationships. It's very important. One of the things I was, when I was talking about this men's conference is that, I was like, well, so your question, of course, is how do I know? How do I know this works? Or how can I stand up here and tell you that it is reconnecting to my faith, that it is having trust in God, that it is, how do I know this? Because I had no choice.
Right.
I had a year of my father die, my sister die, my business die, my
It was your Good
husband
Friday.
leaves, I lose
Yeah.
my home. It was a year and a half of total destruction. And I mean, you just, everyone's like, well, you're so strong. I'm like, I have no choice now.
Right.
What's my other choice but to be strong? And I said, I would joke that. I said, when I hit rock bottom, I was so grateful when I noticed that rock was God. Like, oh, you're still here. At least, you're still here.
Well, did that happen immediately? Like your journey in faith?
Well,
when you have this, what we would call a Good Friday moment,
Yeah,
where everything
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
falls apart, like, was your relationship strong with Christ in that moment, or were you still building it? Like,
Well, I'm like a lot of other listeners, I'm sure, and you, and I went to Catholic school, cradle Catholic, had all my sacraments. Same, got into my 20s, into my career, into the world, hairdressing, traveling. And I was kind of putting together my own faith. It was
Right.
kind of the Church of Mille. This is what I believe.
Milleology.
Yeah. I was looking at different faiths, different beliefs. I read Siddhartha. I was reading the Celestine Prophecy.
Yeah.
I'm seeking.
Yeah,
I
you're a
guess.
seeker.
So I'm seeking, and I'm a learner by nature. So I read a ton of books, and when I got married in the church. Wanted to raise my family in the church. Did that. Got the kids through their sacraments. So that's it's like a connection, and then kind of a exploration, and then reconnect and exploration. So I was back into an exploration after my kids got their sacraments. But then, when this happened, I just knew it was and I was so thankful that I had that foundation of faith to go back to.
Yeah.
If I would have had to start from scratch, I don't know that I could have done it. You know what I mean? I'm sure I could have done it, but it wouldn't have been, not that it was easy, but it would have been definitely more painful and definitely more doubtful. I think because I had a faith that, thank God, my mom instilled in us when we were younger. I could plug back into that faith and say, yeah, there was something to all that, that we were going through. And so, it was one of those things where I was seeking again. I was going through evangelical churches. My customers were bringing me Christian books. I was listening to a lot of Joel Osteen, some of his older good stuff.
Everybody needs a little Joe Osteen in their life.
And so, but then I thought to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, I have my own faith.
Yeah.
So I decided, we were talking about earlier too, I decided to, start going back to the Catholic Church. And I ended up in chapel at Holy Angels and found out that was home.
Yeah.
And went daily, weekend, got very involved. Again, had someone share with me, you should be a spiritual director, went to formation for that.
What would the people that you used to cut their hair?
Oh my gosh! Well,
25 years ago
what's
say
so
now?
funny? Not so much my customers, the hairdressers I hairdressered with. They're the ones that would be like, "You're what?
They have
Excuse
the
me,
stories.
what?"
The conference girls. Yeah, the conference ladies.
Oh yeah, but my customers saw the evolution as I went. You know what I mean? It's like I was always ministering to them behind the chair, but my ministry got a little better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A little more intentional, we got a little more serious about what we're talking about.
I'd love to see how many hairdressers ended up in ministry.
Well, we were talking about my friend Melissa DeFini. She's a former hairdresser.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's one of the things I talked about in the conference talk I did for you, was that there was a woman that was going to see a psychiatrist, and he was like, okay, so you did all the things we did last week. You talked about, she goes, no, I didn't do any of it. He goes, well, why not? She's like, well, I talked to my hairdresser and she thought that was a dumb idea. And he was like, what? You're paying me thousands of dollars to do your therapy, but you're listening to your hairdresser? She's like, well, she really knows me.
I was going to say, yeah.
Now, more than ever, we need to pause and take time away to reconnect with what's most important. The Trilogy Retreat Property is a unique bed and breakfast style retreat experience for those who have never been on retreat before or anyone who regularly takes advantage of retreat opportunities. This private 24-acre property is a special place, allowing you to slip away from the rest of the world and discover God in the way your soul needs. Whether your stay is in an individual room or the privacy of our guest cottage, you'll have full access to an array of amenities. Trilogy offers retreat experiences for individuals, couples, families, and organizations to grow in their faith. During your time away, take advantage of fishing the 2-acre lake, walk the reflection trail through the woods, or spend time by the fire. Found in the heart of Southington, Ohio, the Trilogy Retreat property is easily located between Cleveland and Youngstown. To discover all Trilogy has to offer, visit our website, trilogy.center. No matter what your reason for visiting, the staff at Trilogy is ready to help you write the rest of your story.
Life experience and faith, right? And so as a seeker, you're on this journey, right? And you come back to church, or not come back, but settle into the Catholic Church, and you're like, this is home. You know, for me, it was a little bit interesting because as you were telling that story, I was thinking about it in my own journey, and I kind of felt like played by the whole thing at first. Like when I came back to the church because I knew my heart was looking for something, and then my faith was tested because everything fell apart after I had come back. And I thought, well, this is bullshit. Like, this is the theoretic, like, this is the bait and switch. Like, you suckered me into this. And I thought that everything was going to be perfect once I was there. But it was all about me, right? But when I went back and I replayed this whole situation out that happened to me now 18 years ago, whatever the period is. Now, when I look at that, then I connect those dots of life experience, and I see that I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And that God didn't do these things to get my attention, but he also didn't stop them from happening.
That's right.
Because it wasn't until I learned those things that I could really be who he created me to be.
Right. Yeah, there's so much in just that one little snippet. You know, you could like rewind, play. But it's so true because, and you know, there's things there. The theology is often that, you know, God doesn't, you know, do things to us. He allows things for us.
Yeah.
And I say that to a lot of people in direction. It's like, you know, what if you looked at this as you chose it? Because when you choose something, you usually have a plan. When something happens to you, you're a victim.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes you a little bit more assertive, more intentional, out of the pity party. I tell people you can visit Pity City, but you can't move in. So really, we just, you know, how are we going to make this my victory song, you know? And it's not always going to look the same for everybody, and it might not have pink roses on it all the time, but wouldn't
you say that you learned to be a listener as a hairdresser, though?
Oh yeah.
Like, think about it as a spiritual director. Like,
yeah.
That's real
and
talk.
And it's funny because even my professor was like, "You've been listening to people for years." I said, "Well, that's true." but yeah. So, and I think too, you know, God uses where we've softened, you know, like in manufacturing, there's always those burrs. And, you know, sometimes their whole job is just to remove those burrs. I think that's sometimes what we are in life. It's just, we just got to remove those rough edges, you know, go back to the part of, you know, brokenness, woundedness. But then that's where we minister from. It's like the story of the woman in the hole. I'm sure I've talked about it on our podcast, but you know, when we get stuck in a hole, can't get out, the priest walks by, throws down a prayer, the doctor walks by, throws down a prescription, and a woman walks by and jumps in. She's like, "What are you doing?" She said, "I've been in this hole now. I know how to get out."
Yeah. She knows the way.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that we need to rely on. And I think we find that in each other.
Yeah.
And it is the beautiful part about being in ministry just as a life vocation.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that about like speaker, author, none of that stuff. I'm just talking about as a sojourner on the road, that we're all in this ministry.
Right.
To not have to provide answers to people.
Right.
Like, so here's what I love about the story that you just told. I used to get caught in the trap of thinking that I needed to fix everybody that came to me with their problem. And then I think about the girlfriends who are on their trip, and the one girl gets upset and she's crying in the hallway, and she doesn't want advice from anyone. She just wants the girlfriend who's going to hand her a drink, sit down next to her,
Let her cry.
and let her cry. Mm-hmm. And so when we get in the hole with someone else, let's not all of a sudden be like, well, let me tell you about this hole. Mm-hmm. Let me listen to what you need to tell me about your experience in this hole.
Yeah, and that's a great point, too, because I don't want to mislead anyone in any way by saying that, like, in spiritual direction, it's really direction. It's really not direction. It's a kind of, I hate that name for it.
Yeah.
It's spiritual accompaniment. And I have a really deep belief that we all have the answers. We really all have our own answers.
Sure we do. Because God lives in us.
Right.
Right.
So we have the answer. We have the one who knows the answers in us.
Yeah.
And so I feel like direction sometimes is asking open-ended questions, like not letting people slide too far from like a point of where maybe, they should be, like, so it is a little bit of directing, but it's also allowing a person to talk enough that they start to hear the voice of God through their own voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that. I can't tell you how much times I'll be in spiritual direction and I'll be talking about it. I was like, wait a cotton picking minute, I got this. It's
yeah,
like,
right.
You don't realize that, yes, now that I've got it out of my head and I'm trying to explain it to somebody else, it makes perfect sense to me. You know what I mean? So there's a way of just that, like you say, that accompaniment, like just that allowing, the ministry of presence, like, and it's tempting. It's so tempting to fill in the blank, like times and the silences, and it's so crucial. I remember taking a communication web seminar, and it's like, the United States is like we're so conditioned to not have like silence. And you go to China and there'll be like 5 minutes in between a response. Like somebody could be thinking or talking, but we're like, and then if you do jump in sometimes when you're in a business with someone, they think it's rude.
Well,
so
if you go to old sales 101, like it always was, the first one to talk loses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
so right.
We have to sit in that silence sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'll say, from being someone who's has a spiritual director, and I've let people in on the secret before that, as speakers and authors, we're usually it's self-therapy. Yeah. Like we're telling you what's on our heart.
I'm writing about this because I need this as much as I think
99% of the time, that's usually what it is,
right.
or we lived it.
Right.
But I can tell when that director is really seeking the gift of the Holy Spirit to help guide me in what I need to hear. And I've never left spiritual direction and ever felt like it was a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, understanding that is key, because I remember in training, it's like, remember there's the three of us in the room. It's the director, directee, and the Holy Spirit. And truly the Holy Spirit is the one that does the directing.
Yeah.
Because we call on the Holy Spirit when we go into direction. It's like, I'm sure you have the prayer with your spiritual director, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, come, reveal yourself, reveal what it is, you want us to know, reveal what it is, you want us to learn and how to grow and all these things that only you can reveal to us.
Yeah, the advocate, right? Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. And I think when we get into this faith discussion, think about how things, we talked about the Bible and how long things take to set up, right?
Yeah.
Like things that come to fulfillment don't happen for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. How hard is it, since we're talking about life experiences, how hard is it for us to accept that what we're doing today isn't for us?
Yeah.
We had that conversation
too, and I'll give you my quote. It says, we have to get we have to be okay with the idea that the tree of the seed of the tree we're planting today, we may never sit under its shade.
Yeah.
So that,
And probably
I totally butchered that, but
no,
you
9
get
times out of 10.
Yeah, it's like sometimes we're laying groundwork, and we are products of being on the shoulders of others. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is a progression. It is an ascension. And like you say, because we were talking about like numbers and ministries coming from business.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to look at, like, there's always the return on the investment. What's the ROI? What's the ROI? And I heard I heard somewhere in business, we have to look at it as the ROI in ministry as the ripple of influence.
Oh, I was going to say return on intercession.
But the ripple,
I just thought of that. Wait, give me a second. Let's sit in that for a minute.
But we have to look at, like, these numbers aren't the same as a secular world. When we are a little bit older, that we can see so much of the product of what's been poured into our lives. Like, I feel like some days I'm living on my grandmother's prayers.
And you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so often it's the beauty of the communion of saints. Right? I gave a talk about communion of saints recently to a group, and it really even kind of blew me away. Like, I'm like in the middle of this talk, and I'm like, this is like crazy rich, beautiful, heaven and earth kind of things. And then you go back to early like church documents, and I've always told people I've written more books than I've read. I'm not like a huge reader. I struggle. I'm not an academic. Like, I know it's kind of weird that I fit into this. I don't even know what I fit into, but I was reading this older church document, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm seeing the beauty that when somebody wrote something in 1694, right? So we're like 530 years later.
Right.
They didn't write it for now. They wrote it for then. And like they were probably upset that nobody read this, right? I tell people all the time, Vincent van Gogh killed himself because he thought he was a failure. He only ever sold one painting while he was alive.
Right.
Well, his art is revered.
Right.
And so our lives, what we go through, maybe it's the gospel for 30 years from now. Like what I think so life experiences, I think they reframe our purpose. It isn't about like making excuses or trying to see the bright side or any of that stuff. There is no way that I could ever comprehend the pain that I experienced when I was 25 was going to be actually the cushion or what I would need when I was 45 to deal with the things in life that were going on then.
Right.
And sometimes it was even the mentors or, what I used to find that inspiration. But there's nothing that's ever had so much connection with what I've gone through in life as the gospel, the faith, the tradition, and even the beauty of community with inside the church. No inspirational speaker can do that. No motivational speaker can do that.
Right.
I'd love to tell you that I could do it as a person, but I can't. My greatest joy is that when I write something and I pull it back out 5 years later and I look at it, I'm like, how in the world did I ever come up with this? And then it's in that instant that I'm reminded that I didn't come up with it.
Right.
None of this is me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that life leads us to that moment. Like we go back to the beginning where you're sitting in the chapel knowing the church is your home. When did you ever think that your husband was going to become a deacon in that moment?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I wasn't even dating him when I was back at that church.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like what needs to align
Yeah.
for you not only to have a husband that you're going to meet, but and I do Bible study with this beautiful child of God.
Yeah.
But like that, like I know his journey. Like even 10 years ago, nobody could have, expected
Right.
it.
Yeah, it's definitely God's plan. I joke about, like, my sister up in heaven, and I was joking, like, when I was kind of thinking about, like, getting back in the dating pool again, I'm like, hey, you got a good view. Find me a nice Catholic boy. And I literally, faith was a deal breaker. Like, if they weren't at least faithful, if they were Catholic, all the better. But I was not going to do marriage, especially, again, without the same, being equally yoked.
Wow.
They do say it for a reason.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't going to do it again without faith. And so Bill and I were a product of eHarmony, believe it or not, which is a Christian-based website.
Our new sponsor, eHarmony. No,
Yeah.
just kidding.
And it was funny because, I was re-entering, really submerging myself into the faith, and so Bill would say, well, why don't you elect her? You've got a speaking background. Why don't you, so, and he literally, initially I was like, God, this guy's like boss. Like, well, I'm going to do this at my own pace. But I think because I wouldn't have if he hadn't encouraged me.
He's leading you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had not had that really before. So it was, it was definitely something to grow into. As I say, careful what to wish for, but it's truly been a spirit-led, union.
Yeah. And you make mistakes along the way, right?
Like, yeah, we've made plenty.
Pride, ego, desire, we said worldly, worldly versus ministry, right? Like,
yeah.
I said earlier before we got on the air that, I don't even know if it's called the air anymore, before we got on the web. But that I can't tell the electric company and the gas company that I saved somebody's soul today, and that should count for something.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the worldly aspect that we live in. And I was watching a talk show yesterday, and the person that came out was like really amped up. They were giddy and joyful, and I've done those interviews before, and I know that maybe backstage you don't feel that way at all. Like, you really got to pump yourself up to do an interview or something like that. And I think we forget that not everybody that we admire or people that we look up to is just in this state of euphoria or high energy all the time. That, like you said before, when your world broke apart, like, people don't see you on the days that you were just holding a piece of rubble in your hands.
I remember my mantra was, Lord, I know you're going to give me beauty for these ashes. I know you're going to, Lord, are you listening?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to give me beauty for these ashes. And it was, it was got to be kind of like a joke. But, I couldn't even imagine the beauty he gave me for the ashes. And it was, and again, like, especially having, my spiritual direction background is Ignatian, of course. So I think a lot about consolation and desolation. And, of course, we study that type of thing. And I just remember, a couple things I remember is never make a decision in desolation. So never make a decision when you're far from God.
Say that a little bit slower. I really want people to hear that. Say that
Never
again.
make a decision in desolation. So in other words, never make a decision when you're far from God. And in consolation, store it up.
Yeah.
Because desolation's guaranteed coming back.
Yeah.
So it's the Paschal mystery. It's the Good Friday. It's this emptiness of Saturday. It's the Resurrection Sunday. And that is life. That's our season. That's summer, spring, fall. It's every season.
But there's still beauty in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's still a process, and it's still moving. Like, we are constantly being held into being in creation. Like, we don't have a God that says, I'm just going to rest this one over here for a while. I got these 3 to take care of. We're all constantly, I just heard the other day, being sung into creation by God. So yeah, it's, and like you say, we have our good days, we have our bad days. One of the reasons I went to the lay ecclesial ministry to get more education is because I had imposter syndrome. Like, 2 years of spiritual direction, and you say, like, they give you a badge and say, go save those souls. It's like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not qualified.
Right.
And I'm glad, don't get me wrong, I'm glad I went for the 3 more years. But that was part of my formation. Like, I had to understand who did he bring in in as his apostles? And wasn't the Pharisees. I mean, Saul wasn't Paul until he was gone.
Yeah.
So he was the biggest hitter.
Yeah.
But, and I really believe that he only brought him in because of his conversion story.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, even reading Acts of the Apostles, you realize how much the conversion story is of the New Testament. From the second half of Acts through all of the letters.
Oh, yeah.
This is about Paul telling these people, I can journey with you because I've lived this.
Right.
And there's still a thorn in my side, right? There's still
that he
something
won't
that I
remove.
struggle with. Yeah. And despite that, like, I'm afraid to have it all. Like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But, like, because I don't think there's anything beyond that. And I don't think that you can have it all, because all is heaven.
Right.
Like, and you could
but
laugh
what's
at
all?
that or scoff at.
What's
like,
all? What's all to you? I mean, if we are looking at, being missionary disciples, if we have what we need, if we have 2 shirts, we give away 1. I mean, so again, what is need? So we need to kind of back up to, if I have it all, what is all? I have a family, I have a roof over my head, I have a wonderful relationship, I'm so blessed.
Oh yeah, people would trade places for all my problems in a minute.
I mean, and we're thinking of, like, do I have $1 million? Do I have a jet? Do I have a jet? No, but you and I both know, you interview those people, and 9 times out of 10, I hate to say, they're miserable.
Well, because it becomes their God.
Right.
So, like, we are people that desire a deity. We have to make something our God.
Right.
Because there has to be something that we focus on and we give our attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like, if you're listening right now and maybe your faith life is something that you've struggled with, or you haven't really given it time or attention or haven't surrendered to it, I can tell you that there is nothing that you can put your trust in of a material item that will be with you when you're in your hole, or will be with you when you're struggling, that will give you consolation.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that may give you consolation of a material item is only because it has a memory attached to it from a loved one, or something that meant something to you when times were better.
The comfort.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, no, we struggle to desire God in all of his goodness. Mm-hmm. But because we are human beings, we always want to think that there's an easier way, a better way, or that we know better than God.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if God let you have full control of the game?
Do you remember the movie Bruce Almighty?
Yeah.
He's like, Jim Carrey's like, type, yes, yes. And then it's like everything goes crazy, right?
Yeah, like he thinks, if you've never seen the movie, you got to see it, but he's pulling the moon closer for Jennifer Aniston, who is his girlfriend or his wife. I think it's his girlfriend. But he's pulling the moon closer so that she can see how beautiful it is, and then realizes that he messed up the entire gravitational pull of the Earth, and now places are flooding and storms are happening. But that's the thing. If we were put in control... Yeah. Right. Philip Yancey said something.
It's kind of cliche too, but I mean, look at the people that win the lottery. Not everyone, but if you don't have principles of how to, navigate and use money wisely, and you get money.
Yeah. Philip Yancey said something. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's like, faith is only what we can understand when we watch it in reverse.
Oh yeah. That's what we say. We live our lives forward, but we only understand it backwards.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about. Like, as older, we can look back and connect the dots of, I really thought I was by myself here, and I thought I was going to fall through the abyss. But God, that's where he met me. That's where he sent this friend. That's where he sent this prayer. That's where he sent this moment, just a moment that I felt a light in the darkness that got me through the night.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes it's like the cliche too. Like, I love the image of headlights, like on a dark road, and the headlight, I don't have to see the whole thing. Just let me see tomorrow. Let me see let me know the next step.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like you say too, like I have people say to me, I just wish Jesus would come in, just have a seat on the couch. Tell me what you want me to do. And I said, you know what? I had a spiritual director tell me, no, you don't. You wouldn't. It would horrify you. Like, what is it? How much he thinks you can do?
Yeah, you think you disappoint him now?
Yeah, like what? Like what what your call is, like to really have it. So yeah, it's it, like you say, it's careful what you wish for. But sometimes it's just. I mean, there have been many times in my life, especially with having a child that was very ill, and I mean, just nights of desperate prayer and to St. Monica, and reading about like what Ambrose said to her, like the tears of this mother will not go unanswered. All the things that we just know and read. You talk about a communion of saints and our faith, and there's such a richness that, like I said, I just wish more people knew the depth of what our church, the Catholic Church, has to offer, because it is the real deal.
Yeah, and it's been built on it's also been built on mistakes, right, of humans.
It's been built by humanity,
yeah,
which is not perfect, but we've tried to destroy it for 2,000 years, and we haven't even been able to do it yet.
Yeah, there's nothing else that sustained itself in that long.
The gates of hell, they say, will not prevail.
And how do we make it better, right? And nothing will be perfected until heaven. And
right.
And I think even our life experiences that we bring into that church, like how we walk in and we are community to one another, and we open up ourselves to a new parent, or we open up ourselves to someone that is struggling.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so important, like this community aspect, because, there's the saying of like, we're only as strong as our weakest link, right? Or we're only as happy as our least happy kid, So in this whole family community, it took me a while to understand, like when one suffers, we all suffer. Like if we have someone in the church that is suffering, the body of church suffers, and the same token on the other end, one conversion, one person like on fire for the Lord is a huge victory for the body of Christ.
Yeah.
When you heal, the world heals.
Yeah.
So it's a reason, like there is a reason we're called to live in the community of church, in the community of Christ. So many, typologies of, Christ came into a family, and the Holy Spirit, like the triune God's a family, So it is definitely, community is an integral part of our journey.
Yeah. Well, and Jesus had experiences. I mean, as a human being,
right.
There is that story of humanness in which Mary had, and which Joseph had, and every prophet, every person, and even the Christ that comes, and the world dismisses him, and it's filled with pain, and it's filled with hurt, and we know how it ends. But even before that, just in crying for his people and sobbing because his heart is heavy, like we look to that and it's not just a story for us to read and go, oh, okay, that's nice today. I think these life experiences are almost like, if I think about it like a camera, like they're different lenses. And, we need to come into focus for certain things. And without these life experiences, we don't have the right lens to look at things the way that we need to look at them today.
Right.
And maybe that's the biggest consolation in all of it, that, from where this conversation started in growth of, like I said, being in ministry, being a grandmother, being the wife of a man who's growing in his relationship and his call to God and supporting him, like those days when you were in that hole and in your rubble, that's never, ever what you expected. Nor what you were looking forward to. You knew where you needed to be, and you surrendered.
Yeah. Remember, our Father Albert Haas says we have a God of disguise and surprise.
Yeah.
Disguise and surprise. I think about that often. Because when we imagine, it's like, okay, God, I know you're going to give me beauty from these ashes, but we can't imagine how much beauty he has in store.
Yeah.
We can't even put our minds to it. I mean, if I tell you the experiences that we've had, like over the course of these, coming up on 5 years, the communities we've been able to be in and the presence of different people. I went to the National Eucharistic Congress and just, so many, like, who am I, Lord? Who am I?
Yeah. And maybe, I think that's the other way to look at it, as we kind of wind it down, like, Lord, you must trust me. Or, Lord, I'm sorry I didn't accept your preparation. Or maybe even in that moment, like, who am I, Lord? That you would give me this moment, this opportunity, even in the crappy ones.
Yeah.
There's that story in Acts when Paul is telling his captors that that they're going to wreck the ship and it's going to be bad, and they won't listen to him, and then eventually it happens.
Right.
And it's it's not an eye opener for everybody. It's only an eye opener to the people who listened to the one and then said, oh my gosh, who is this guy that could tell us this? Mm-hmm. And so if you're struggling, if you're growing, if you're getting ready for the next phase, how do we step back and read the things that we need to read, listen to what we need to listen to, or even be directed by the people who can guide us and say, here's what I hear the Holy Spirit saying.
Right. I'm a huge proponent of spiritual direction, only because it's been very beneficial to me in my life. I mean, not only was I in training to be a spiritual direction, but I was in spiritual direction way before that training. I had to go through a whole year. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to go through a whole year of spiritual direction and doing the spiritual exercises before I ever entered the program.
Yeah.
So I had that whole year of discernment, and it's journaling, and it's amazing when you combine your intellect with Holy Spirit, with life experience. You start to see some of the plan. Like I joke about the grandmothers sitting doing needlepoint and the little kids underneath going, what a knotted mess are you doing? And of course from that side it looks like a mess with strings and knots and and then she just like tips and gives them a little view of what it's really going to look like.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes
another scarf for Christmas, kid.
Yeah. I think that's what direction does. It gives us sometimes that glimpse of the beauty of the plan.
Well, I think what we'll do is next time we'll get together, we'll talk about spiritual direction. Maybe we'll give people an opportunity just to learn about that. So we'll have to set that up. But I love our conversations. We didn't do a Millie's Minute today. I didn't want to put that pressure on you, but I really feel like it's a grace-filled conversation just about growth and experiences, and that we're just never alone in what we're doing. Whether it's joy or pain,
right?
There's somebody either in that hole or on that mountaintop.
There's always something to learn, and there's always someone to learn about, and everyone has an amazing story to tell.
Yeah. Are you, if people want to learn more about like what you're writing, what you're working on?
Well, I have Substack. Yeah. Of course, I'm on Facebook, Millie Prebel. But so I try and do some like writing once a week. And, of course, we'll see what else is coming up these next couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, I try and post, not necessarily inspirational, but, just spiritual ponderings.
Yeah.
I like to put things out that make people think, to ponder like, So, but yeah, just basically on Instagram, same Millie Prebel.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's an incredible vegan chef, by the way, too. That's a whole other podcast. But you can even go on the Faith and Real Life website. And if you look up Sacred Nourishment, there are some amazing recipes that Millie did one year for Lent. We highlighted them this year again during Lent. So check out Sacred Nourishment at faithandreallife.com. You'll get a recipe, you'll see Millie, and you'll learn something about vegan cooking along the way. But you have a story too, and you are living something that God has blessed you with. I know that it may not be rosy, and I know that today it may feel like the greatest burden in the world, but I can tell you that somewhere along the way, somebody else has been in your shoes, and somebody else is willing to walk with you or to pray for you or to be guided by your living example in some way. So don't give up. Keep pushing forward. Let your life experiences shape you into somebody beautiful as a child of God. And just make sure that at the end of the day, that you're giving all the glory back to God, and that even in the storm, if we praise him, that we will walk on water too. So God bless you. God keep you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to faithandreallife.com, where you can see all of our inspiration, or you can go back and listen to any of our podcasts on whatever platform you are listening to, and certainly share with people. That is one way that the ministry continues its outreach, is by you sharing this podcast with somebody that you think would benefit from it and might need a deeper relationship with the love of Christ. So, my friends, until I see you again next time, may God bless you and keep you, and I pray that he will meet you everywhere that you desire him always. Take care.